Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Off the Crutch. My name is Travis Davis. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to mention Monday's episode I did with Allison Norleon. If you haven't checked it out yet, I highly recommend giving it a listen, especially if you're interested in writing or film. I don't usually release 2 episodes in 1 week, so it's a special treat. Now, if this is your first time tuning in, welcome. A little bit about me. I have spastic diplegia cerebral palsy, and this podcast for the past 4 years is all about raising awareness of the disability community by sharing stories of resilience and overcoming challenges. It's been an amazing journey connecting with others and amplifying voices within a community I'm proud to be a part of. A couple weeks ago, I had the incredible opportunity to see an advanced screening of Disney's Out of My Mind, which is out on Disney Plus tomorrow. The film tells a story of a young girl with cerebral palsy who is nonverbal. My guest today is Amber Sealey, the film's director. Out of My Mind is based on the best-selling young adult novel of the same name and features Rosemarie DeWitt, Luke Kirby, and Judith Light, with Jennifer Aniston voicing the inner thoughts of the lead character, played by Phoebe Ray-Taylor. This film resonated with me deeply. Not only have I faced similar challenges, but as someone who has been a classroom teacher, it struck a personal chord. What I loved about my last episode with Allison was hearing her passion for making a difference in the disability community through storytelling. Similarly, listening to Amber's thought process behind directing this movie gave me another perspective and even more motivation for my own storytelling aspirations. I'd like to thank United Cerebral Palsy for connecting me with the movie's marketing team and Disney for this great opportunity. I'm so excited to share this conversation with you. Enjoy my interview with Amber. Thank you so much for your time today, Amber. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So you grew up in Santa Fe?
I did. Yeah, I was born in England, but my parents were hippies and they drove across the US and then landed in Santa Fe. They were like, New Mexico's so cool. And so they landed in Santa Fe, and that's where I grew up. And my mom still lives there. I go back, 3 or 4 times a year.
That's really cool. What about Santa Fe did you like growing up there?
Oh God. I mean, it's only with the perspective of adulthood, right, that I can look back and like really appreciate. As a kid, I was like a dorky theater nerd. And so, I was made fun of and stuff. But um looking back, I see how special it was. I mean, first of all, you just can't beat the land and the sky and just the air there, the earth. It's just so, so magical and special. And so now I find myself longing for the views, particularly the skies. I think the sunsets, the clouds, the thunder, rainstorms, like it just really, I think it has a perfect season for every season. You have a perfect summer, a perfect winter, perfect fall, like you're idyllic, what you imagine of each season. But I also really appreciated the kind of dedication to art and community. Again, like I didn't know any different growing up, but now as an adult, having experienced other cities in other countries, I really appreciate the kind of loving, easy way of life that Santa Fe has.
That's really cool. When you were growing up, did you want to be a director or be involved with film?
I didn't, because I didn't see any examples of women directors. I didn't, all the household names of, movie directors were male. That at least coming to Santa, back then there wasn't the film industry that was very big in New Mexico as there is now. And so I didn't really see examples of women doing this job. So it's kind of a out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. I don't know. I didn't really think that I could. But I also, at the time, was really interested in being a performer. So I, started acting and dancing from age 5. And it was the first thing that I was good at as a kid. Like I wasn't really a great student. I didn't really, excel in any particular area except when it came to acting and writing and creating. And I guess because it was the only thing I was good at, I sort of went down that path. And it wasn't really until um, later on in life when I had been a working actor for a while when I realized I was like, wait, I want to write and I want to direct. And so I started dabbling in directing. I was living in London at the time and I was working with this theater company. And I got very inspired by the Dogma film movement that was going on in Europe. And I guess at the same time, the mumblecore movement was starting here in the States, but I wasn't here at the time. But I was like, oh, wow, you don't need, because I didn't come from Hollywood. And so I didn't realize, like, oh, you could just grab a camera and, the digital age really like opened things up for me. And so I thought, wow, I want to try this. And I made my first film and just fell in love. And I was like, oh, this is what I was meant to do. I have my do not disturb thing turned on and it still disturbs me. I need help with my computer. I don't know how. I'm sorry if the dings come through. I don't know why. It says do not disturb, but the texts still come in. Anyway, um, point is, I love directing and writing, and it wasn't really until I was about, I don't know, my late 20s, early 30s that I figured out I could do it. So I guess I was a late bloomer.
Hmm. Well, that's a really cool story. A lot of times people don't know what they want to get involved in at an early age, and just takes a lot of trial and error, and then just getting involved with things and just the evolution as a person. So
Yeah. I mean, I love like the story of like the 60, 70, 80-year-old who discovers what they want to do and what they're meant to do. I think that's so cool. And I think people have different phases in life when they're interested in different things and they want to try different things. And yeah, we have hopefully a long life where we get to dabble in a lot of areas.
yeah, I think there's phases where you're reinventing yourself, and 5, 10 years you're doing this, and then another 5, 10 years you're doing something else, or you're in your 60s or 70s, you come to a point where you realize you found something that you really want to do with your life, or you're meant to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel really lucky to have found this because I mean, who knows? Talk to me in 20 years, but I think I want to do this forever. I can't ever imagine wanting to stop. It's so, so fun.
How did the project of Out of My Mind come to you?
Well, so as often happens with films, it takes quite a while to make a movie. The producers optioned the book, I think, I don't know, about 8, 10 years before I was attached. It came to me through my reps, just like kind of normal, boring way. Um, the script was written by Daniel Stiepelman, and it came to me. And my first thought when I got it was like, this is such a beautiful, important story. But because I don't have lived experience with cerebral palsy, I thought, I don't think I'm the right person to tell this story. But I just loved it so much, and I felt like it was so important, and I wanted to be involved. Um, and then I realized that my way in was actually through the parents' story. I have had to fight for my kids to get what they are legally entitled to for their, learning differences. And it was so painful, and so hard. And that was just like the tip of the iceberg of what some parents have to fight. My family spent thousands and thousands of dollars struggling and fighting and years of time, just trying to get my daughter who's dyslexic what the proper instruction in order for her to just learn how to read, and I thought, my God, this is nothing compared to what some families have to go through to get their kids, you know, um, whatever it is that they need in order to learn and be able to be, participatory in class. Um, and so that was kind of my way in, and I just fell in love with, Melody, and fell in love with Chuck and Diane, the whole family, and I was like, "Okay," and then I was lucky enough to get the job, and then it was sort of off to the races. Then I was, like, educating myself, and, I mean, it was such a I consider myself really blessed and lucky to have gotten to direct this film. It's changed my life. It's changed my perspective on how I view humanity, disability, accessibility, neurodiversity. Like, it's really like, I don't know if it put a new lens or taken away a lens in front of my eyes, but it was a true gift to get to work on the film. So,
I had the opportunity to see it a couple of weeks ago.
oh, good, good.
And so I have spastic diplegia.
Hmm.
And there's so much about the film that I resonated with because even like my parents, struggled with the things that they wanted for me.
Hmm.
And as I'm watching it, I'm like, man, I relate to that. I relate to that. Like that's what I go through. And it's such it has so many powerful themes that what did you find like the hardest to film?
Wow, that's a good question. What was really, well, let's see, I'll back up. So when I was, just starting my research, I just want to call out this one book that was like the first book I read and maybe the most helpful. Is called Demystifying Disability by Emily Ladau. I think I'm pronouncing her last name correct. It was such a great book and so helpful. And I think it was in that book I read, one person with a disability is just that, one person with a disability. And so I was able to really embrace that, like um, the concept of I am not trying to speak for all disabilities or all people with disabilities. We're really trying to tell Melody's story. And that's our interpretation of Melody, because obviously there's the book and that's its own thing. And the character in the book is its own thing. And so, we really had to embrace who is this Melody that we all see, we being me as the director and Phoebe as the actor and Daniel as the writer. um, and so to me, it was most important that we were telling a very honest story of this one particular 12-year-old girl who happens to have cerebral palsy and happens to be nonverbal and happens to use a wheelchair. But first and foremost, she's a human being who has thoughts and feelings and dreams and anxieties and a sense of humor and a sense of intellect, all of these things that any human has, to varying degrees. And and so it was most important to me that we were portraying her as a tween like any other. I mean, when we're 10 to 13, we're obsessed with our friends and our first crushes and popularity in school and all of that stuff. And so that to me was like, well, that's what she's obsessed with. She's not going to be obsessed with her wheelchair. Like she's had that her whole life, that's just a part of her life. Um, so while, her having a disability is a large part of the story because it is a large part of how others relate to her, I felt like what was most important that we were trying to show was that she isn't just her disability. She is herself. She is her, as I said, her intellect, her sense of humor, her personality, her charm, she is all of that. And so it was about trying to show that what other people might see is the disability. And what we want is for other people to see her as a human, and see her personality shine. And that was all part of the finding her voice element. It's like a literal finding of her voice with the AAC device. And then it's a kind of metaphorical finding her voice in terms of what's on the inside, getting to come to the outside.
Yeah, I think that's really great. And I'm curious, how did you go about casting Melody?
Well, so we it was a long, long process and it was like a global search. Phoebe Ray Taylor is from England. Um, and first of all, you have a casting director, and the casting director, usually the norm is that you reach out to agencies and managers and you find actors that sort of fit the character kind of age bracket um and so, we did all of that. But in addition, it was very important to me to cast authentically, to all of us on the filmmaking side to cast authentically, which meant somebody who actually had cerebral palsy and somebody who actually used a wheelchair. Um, and so we also reached out to, CP organizations and disability rights organizations and, um, people with CP. And do you have a friend who also has CP? Do you know someone from, say, physical therapy office or doctor's office, so it was a very kind of grassroots outreach. And we got amazing, video submissions from around the world, and that was also one of the most touching parts of the process was, I had people who were, you know, 30 years old sending in video submissions saying, I know I'm too old for this, but I just had to put my hat in the ring or whatever the expression is, because this book and I know this movie will be so important to me and to my family, because I've lived with CP my whole life and I just want this movie to get made. And so, we had so many submissions. It was really special. I remember one young boy who was auditioning. He was 14 and he uses AAC to communicate. And he said, thank you so much. He said, I don't care if I get a part or not in the film. He said, but I am so grateful that you're making this movie. I know that it would have helped me so much when I was a kid. And like, I started crying and he started crying. It was like, and I was like, you're still a kid, but it was like this 14-year-old, it was like, it was just really, really special. So the casting process was, it's always hard to just pick one person, because you end up loving so many people. But Phoebe Ray just really shone. Sean? How do you pronounce that word? Sometimes my British, I'm like, is it British accent? But yeah, she really shined and was just a perfect melody for us.
Were there any particular instances or parts that were difficult to shoot?
No, not really. I mean, it's always hard on set because there's just so many moving parts and so many people and so many personalities. But I love being on set. I love, because I used to be an actor, I love actors. I really fall in love with all of my actors. And all of them on this film were so not only talented, but smart and giving and thoughtful and kind. So it was really I think we all wanted to be there. We knew how special this movie was and how important it was. And so there was no, there were no, with our cast, sometimes, I mean, I'm just imagining, sometimes, I guess I've never actually been on a set where people didn't want to be there. So I'm kind of rambling a bit, but this set felt really magical because, everyone wanted to be there so much and everyone was really committed to the authentic telling of this story. So there wasn't really anything very challenging. I mean, equipment breaks and stuff and, our techno crane didn't work properly, but that's, that happens.
Were there any parts of the book or Melody's story that you wished you could have included but couldn't because of time constraints or the narrative?
For sure. I mean, it's always a challenge adapting a book, right? Because there are always going to be parts that you love but don't necessarily fit. There's one particular scene that I loved so much and was so important. I call it the headband scene. And because of time constraints, it didn't make it in. But I don't know. Oh, if we can, I'll send it to you, and you can see. I think as a teacher, you might really. I don't know. I'm curious to see what you would think of it watching it, because it was another classroom scene, but it was when things really escalate in the classroom with the character played by Willie, who's neurodiverse, and so yeah, I love that scene so much, and we didn't have time to include it, but that was one that stood out for me.
I would love to see that and just provide my insight. I think that this film, at least for me, it gave me more motivation to keep doing the work that I do. I was in Austin last month for the Austin Film Festival. And I went to college in Southern California and studied screenwriting. And for a number of years, growing up, I always wanted to tell stories with characters with disabilities because I'd never saw them when I was late teens, early 20s. I didn't see them in movies or TV shows. And
Mm.
my goal was to create characters, and I changed directions for a little bit, and now it's become more prominent, and it really feels like there's a bigger push to have characters with disabilities, having writers, directors who have disabilities. And I'm just so grateful that things have changed. Is that what you've seen now versus, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's definitely getting better. I don't think we're all the way there yet. I mean, I think it's like 29% of the United States identifies as having a disability. So it is our largest minority. And I don't think we're anywhere near that kind of representation on screen, either, on camera or behind the camera yet. I do hope that this film will start to generate more of that conversation. And there certainly are, there are studies that come out that talk about, how many, in terms of diversity in all of its forms, how much of that is on screen and off screen. But we're not all the way there yet. So I think you should continue to write and continue to create characters, both with and without disabilities, and get us closer. I do hope that this film inspires people to participate in, again, whatever area it is that they want to participate in, but specifically if it's Hollywood and they want to, if they are a person who identifies as having a disability and they want to write or act or direct, I hope they do, and I hope that this film inspires them to do that. So I love hearing that it made you kind of want to do more of that. That's really makes me fill with joy. So yeah.
100%. I came back from the Austin Film Festival with like a new fire, and then having watched your film, I was even more like on fire that I want to get back into it. I want to um work with other people and just get my my stories out, and then have that same reaction that those individuals with disabilities came to you with, of it changed my life, it meant so much to me. Like, that's the kind of impact that I want to have on other people, because I feel like I'm here on this earth for a reason, and
Mm.
being able to use my voice and experiences to help other people with disabilities and help other parents, because I have that lived experience. So, I mean,
And
that's
you're in
just
a great place to do it because Albuquerque now, like there are so many films and TV shows getting made there that there are really talented crew and actors, and you know you're in a great place to kind of, I mean, make a strong community there for yourself with filmmaking.
oh, thank you. Yes, Albuquerque definitely has grown a lot in that aspect, and with Netflix and all the things that have happened over the past, I don't know, 20 years or so. There's really been a boom. So you're absolutely right. There is a huge community here of folks that want to make a difference and see New Mexico grow as another film hub.
Yeah, yeah, I love
What do
that.
you Yeah, it's great. And I've been able to just dip my toes in a little bit in the filmmaking community, but it's been about the past month or so that I've been re-energized with desires to put my stories out there and impact the world in that way.
I mean, and I have to say that we need it now more than ever. This country having just elected a president who openly mocks people with disabilities. We need the stories by and about people with disabilities, that show them living full, authentic lives. I think it's really crucial right now to sort of engender empathy and kindness, now more than ever.
What do you hope audiences, especially those who might be unfamiliar with disabilities, take away from Melody's story?
Think just that what I was saying of just, moving through the world with more empathy, more kindness, and curiosity. One of the things that I learned in making this film was the concept of presuming competence, which I really love, and again has like shifted my views. I just love that the idea of, when you approach anybody, somebody, a child, an adult, whomever it may be, that you approach them with curiosity and the presumption of competence rather than judging somebody by how they look, um, how they speak, how their body moves, and making presumptions about their emotional state, their intellect, their maturity, all of that. So I really hope that this makes people curious about, I guess, in a sense, just being more open-minded, and not judging a book by its cover, for lack of a better expression, but but makes people presume competence more often,
Mhm. Yeah, no, I think that's great. And as I mentioned before, there are parts of the movie that I really resonated with because it's what I live with on a daily basis.
Mhm.
And the competence, the kindness, strangers going out of their way to be kind to me, but then also growing up, having difficult experiences like Melody did. So I just think that seeing that film helps me communicate my story better to other people who are unfamiliar with disabilities. And I
Oh, I love
think,
that.
yeah, it's great to see it from a different perspective, but then also realizing, like you also said earlier, that one person's experience with a disability is just that. But if I can take bits and pieces from Melody's story and the film, and then I can show that with my words and my actions and my stories, I think that just makes it helps get one step closer to like full inclusion and breaking down those barriers, because I believe this film not only will have those types of conversation, but it'll go deeper into, you know, helping people with disabilities find employment, help it. It's like it it opens up more conversations that um I think people may not necessarily think about before they watch the movie.
That just makes my oh yeah, it just I got chills. Obviously, I mean, getting to make the movie, I know it changed Phoebe, our actress's life, and even if it just ends there and it's only changed her life, that's enough for me. But to hear that it could potentially bring um more understanding and potentially uh opening up the worlds of other people is really I'm sounding very ineloquent right now. I'm sorry, but I just it makes me feel so um just grateful to have been a part of something that could potentially mean so much to so many people. And I don't mean to sound I feel like I'm sort of patting myself on the back, which I really don't want to do because it's not about me. It's not about me. I feel really lucky to have gotten to work on this film, to be a part of the story. And if it helps one person or changes one person's life for the better, like I will die happy. I feel like a dork right now. I don't know what I'm saying, but I hope you know what I mean.
I do, and it is going to impact so many people. in my opinion. Again, this is just one person's opinion with a disability, but I was so uh, emotionally touched by it.
Did you
So
cry? Did it make you cry?
um, 2 minutes in, I couldn't stop.
Oh, I love crying when I watch movies, so I love if it makes other people cry.
2 minutes in, I lost it. It was one of the most um emotional movies that I've ever watched in my life, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that.
Oh, that means so much. I love this conversation, Travis. Thank you. This is like so. For a minute there, I thought you were going to say, no, I didn't cry.
No, I've been sharing with folks, not spoiling the movie, but just sharing how much I think they're going to take away from watching this movie, especially those that know me really well. And I think it's going to deepen friendships with the people that I have because they can see from another person's perspective.
Oh, I love that so much. I love that. I love hearing your New Mexican accent come out every now and then too. It like makes me feel like home. I'm like,
Well, I'm glad that I can provide a little piece of home through this interview.
you are. Yeah, you are.
I'll end with this. What's next for you in terms of like the realm of advocacy or storytelling? Do you have any desire to make more films in this area?
For sure, for sure. I mean, one thing that I will always do is have fully accessible sets moving forward. That to see how easy and not expensive that was really just again powerful. To have it be fully accessible for not just our cast that use wheelchairs, but our crew as well, who suddenly felt emboldened to say, hey, I've always been afraid to mention this, but it really helps me if I get a certain screen that goes in front of the lens because, I have a disability with my eyes and I've never said that before on a job, things like that. But also, representing the world as it is on screen. So as we talked before about 29% of, the United States having a disability, to me, that's what you should see reflected back, in terms of the casting and the storytelling. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, this has just changed how I look at the world. I mean, I'm a very big, I don't know if this is the right way of saying, but an advocate for neurodiversity. Like I think neurodiversity is so cool. I actively seek out um, people with neurodiversity to, befriend and work with. And I just love looking at the world through a lens of, oh, we are all really different. We might be similar in certain ways in that we all have thoughts and feelings and we all need love and we all need attention and we all need care. Um, but at the same time, our bodies and our brains all move and work very differently. And that is fascinating to me. So I will never stop being interested in that. Um, but yeah, certainly I have other projects that I have on my slate that center around people with disability and some that don't. And, but I will never, I will never make another film that doesn't in some way, um, um, hold the world as it is, which is that you can't you can't have a world that exists without diversity, and that includes disability. Does that make sense?
It does.
Oh.
Yeah. I think that's the perfect way to end this interview.
Thanks so much, Travis. This was such a pleasure, and I hope to meet you in person one day. Next time I'm in New Mexico.
That would be great. I would love to. It would be an honor.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to today's show. Follow me on social media at Off the Crutch or email me at offthecrutch@gmail.com. I would love to hear your comments, questions, or if you want to be on my podcast. Until next time, everybody, take care.